battles, about brave men, or, just anything in particular. It all has to do with war, the art of war. So if you're a war fan, you love World War II, you love, again, for even going back to, Sparta, for example, on the first song on the album. I mean, that's their thing. That's what Sabaton does. That's what you could expect to have. And again, Last Stand being a good example of, a themed album, but not a concept album. But, again, York's Drift, by the way, reminds me a lot of Resist and Bite from Heroes. So killer song, very power metal sound to it. I really, really liked it as well. And then again, talking about the 2 bonus tracks, and this is what's interesting to me. Some of the negatives to the album, I love when, and maybe I'm just being too picky here, but I think some of the more slower plodding songs, so some of the tracks the album that I would say, such as like The Lost Battalion, Winged Hussars, for example, those are songs that to me are, they're okay. Like, I just wish that the song would kind of take off and go, and it's just kind of, all right, this isn't too bad. But when you hear a song like Camouflage, which is one of the bonus tracks, I'm wondering why that didn't make the cut. Because Camouflage, to me, is a way better song than a couple of the other songs that are on the album, which I found kind of weird. And to your point, All Guns Blazing is a really, really good cover. And I have to know, and I didn't get a chance to look this up before we did the review, but I would love to know if, of course, when you hear Joachim singing during the verse parts, of course, that's him. But then you have some of the more Halford-like vocals that are done very well. And I have to know who's doing that. Because if it's Joachim, that's really, really well done and doesn't sound anything like he normally sings, or is that somebody else in the band doing it? I don't know. But their Halford impression on All Guns Blazing, really, really good job. Damn good job, in fact. And so both of those bonus tracks complement the album very well. And again, I don't understand why Camouflage isn't on there. Huge sing-along choruses. It's just a really good song. And again, there's a couple of songs that I would have taken out of the album in place of Camouflage, just my opinion. But again, there's good songs on here, and some of the best songs that Sabaton, I think's ever done. I mean, Hill 3234, York's Drift, just freaking awesome tracks. Last Battle doesn't sound like anything they've done, but is really, really good. So the good songs on this album are arguably some of the best stuff they've ever done, but then there's a couple of misses and songs that I could do without. So don't get me wrong. So when you're looking at songs like that, it's not killer throughout the whole time by any means, but it's a very, very solid album, and I give it an 8 out of 10.
That's exactly what I gave it. Now, you were talking a few minutes ago about if you're a history buff, you'll really enjoy Sabaton. It's so funny you mentioned that, because I remember a few months ago that our friend Lacey Mucklow had posted on her Facebook page that she thought history should be taught through nothing but Sabaton tracks.
Yeah. And what's great about it, too, is, I mean, of course, Sabaton's from Sweden, but they do a good job. Sorry to cut you off, Beth. I'm not trying to. But they do a really good job of just telling the story from the perspective of, the army and, say, The Last Stand, or in Heroes especially of
300 or
right. I mean, they tell it from that perspective. They don't. It's not a biased opinion of what my version of what I think happened in World War II, as they tell it as the army, or as the general, as the person involved in said song from their perspective.
Shiroyama was about the last shoguns. There's so many. There's a song in there about the American Vietnam soldier. There is a track in there, obviously, with the Sparta, which was the Battle of the 300, where they were blocking the path and so on and so forth around the edge of the mountain. There is so. They have done a fabulous job, hopefully, of making at least a few young people listen to the track, whichever track it is, and want to go back and learn more about that battle or that piece of history. So, to Lacey's point, if nothing else, it would be a great show and tell project to bring in a Sabaton CD and play it for the class.
Oh, absolutely. No, that's
but
a definite way to do it. If you're going to get people interested in what history is and how important history is, in my opinion, there's no better way to do it than to say, hey, check out the song. It'll get your head banging, and check out the lyrics because it tells a story of something you may have never heard of before.
Right. So, yeah, I give it same score you do, 8 out of 10.
This is weird, man. We're like copying each other, even though, again, if you're new to the show, we don't discuss any of this stuff until we press record and talk. And so when you're hearing this, we're hearing this as well, saying, oh, wow, you gave it the same score I did. But that's exactly what we did on the Sabaton's most recent album, The Last Stand. Check it out. If you're a Sabaton fan, there's not even a doubt you're going to pick this up and listen to it, often. Anyway, but even if you're not a Sabaton fan and you're a history buff, check it out. If you just like metal and you want to hear something that's really, really good and interesting and unique, check it out. Either way, you can't go wrong. Sabaton's most recent one, The Last Stand.
Does no one see it like I do? Does no one know that we're just passing through? No one feel what I do? We're passing through. These silhouettes remain. They're not the sum of me. No longer represent who I used to be. They just remind me of where I used to wait, how I used to think.
We have all types of reviews on this episode of According to Metal with just very unique, yep, I know who that is, vocals. Of course, that's Tom England. You may know him from the band Evergrey, and new album coming out from Evergrey, actually September 9th. Of course, we are reviewing that now because I'm telling you right now, whoo, if you're an Evergrey fan, you are going to love this album. Of course, this is A Storm Within, an album that we are both really excited to check out and get into. Of course, I've been an Evergrey fan for quite some time. Biv, a little newer to the Evergrey camp, and so let's start with the new guy and see what his thoughts are on this album. Biv, what did you think of it, man?
Well, I'm not terribly new. I mean, you introduced me to Evergrey, and believe it or not, 15 years ago. So
Hasn't been that long.
yeah, it really has been. So I don't know if you want to call that new or not.
I didn't realize it's that long. I guess it was, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. So, of course, many of our listeners will be familiar with the first video release from the CD Distance. And I can easily see why they chose that song, because it has a very infectious bass and kind of a guitar reverb that just really works. The chorus is strong. The keys are well placed. The song structure is just excellent. There are other tracks on this CD, however, that are equally as good, if not better. And that's saying a lot. Like Passing Through. I tell you what really drew me in about this track. Now, I've talked about this before, and we talked about this a little bit, ago on the news segment. That, the third grade lyrics of the new Metallica track. Well, this is just the opposite of that.
Oh, absolutely.
Passing Through has some of the most mature, adult. I've grown up. I'm looking at the world through different colored glasses now. I see what's important. The things that used to be important to me aren't important to me anymore. That's the kind of just feel and vibe and lessons that you get from a song like Passing Through. Great song structure. It's not overly complex, but it's really good. It will be in my rotation for a long time to come. Astray, killer riff on the bridge. Oh, man. The first couple of minutes of that track, you're going, man, it's okay. It's pretty good. They get to the bridge, and if that doesn't just steal you right into the song, I don't know what will. As you know, I love keyboards, and The Impossible is just it's a keyboard only track with vocals that just really, to me, connects the first half and the second half of the CD, because they're a little different and they kind of have certain meanings. There's a certain turning point lyrically, and it goes right into My Allied Ocean, which just comes out with this blaring, awesome power riff. In Orbit, which features Flora Jansen of Nightwish, she also appears on track number 10, Disconnected. And they actually considered making this their first single, but they decided on Distance instead. And then as you know, Jason, and many of our listeners know now, I'm a sucker for a good power ballad. And
I knew it when you.
Dude, the Paradox of Flame is just killer. It couldn't have been written and performed any better. So
it's funny. When I was doing my notes on the album, again, you know my thoughts on ballads. I know your thoughts on ballads. And as I'm making some notes on it, I'm thinking Biv's going to like this song. So I don't even have to guess. And that's why I started laughing.
No, you're right. You nailed it. So I'm giving this an 8.5 out of 10.
Okay. Well, good score. Let me give you my thoughts and opinions on it. First of all, we just played Passing Through, which is the song we just played. Killer ass track. And by the way, this is the album of all the albums we reviewed on this episode I listened to the most. Just going to come out and say it. Killer track, and arguably I think one of the better songs they've ever done. I really mean that. One of the better songs Evergrey's ever done. This song right here, Passing Through, rocks. Absolutely rocks. Well-placed keys, really great riffs, great vocals, great lyrics, just a absolutely awesome song. If there's a song, and we asked a lot of our guests this on the show, if there's one song you had to play to give somebody an idea of what Evergrey sounds like or what your band sounds like, Passing Frickin' Through would be the track I would play. It absolutely rocks. My Allied Ocean, blistering riffs to start off the song, great song. In Orbit, another killer track. The Lonely Monarch, by the way, really liked the song, and it has a very mind's eye, like a very Daniel Flores-like song that he would write, with, really, kind of weird, eerie sounding, kind of instrumental electronic keys here or there. Really, really cool track. Of course, Paradox of the Flame, I knew you're going to go there. Actually sung with his wife, Karina England, Tom's wife. She sings very well as well. Again, I'm not a huge metal ballad fan anyway. It's an okay song. It's not awful, but it's not my favorite thing I've ever heard by any means. But again, you should expect that from me, just like you could expect Biv to love it. So that's what it is. If you're a ballad fan, no Biv. Go to Biv with your in-depth breakdown of metal ballads. Don't go to me with in-depth metal ballad reviews, unless you want to talk Iced Earth ballads, which I think are the best ones out there. But that's just a whole different story. Disconnect, by the way, a weird track. And it starts out super heavy, then it calms down, then gets heavy again. Great solo, by the way, on that song. And it's a great example of an Evergrey track because there's a lot of moods within the song. It's a 6-minute track, and that's the one takeaway I've gotten from this album especially is, again, I love it when bands do not put themselves in a, okay, this is clearly power metal, this is clearly progressive metal, this is clearly folk metal, this is death metal, this is et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know what in the hell category you put Evergrey. I really don't. I have no clue. I mean, there's progressive to it, don't get me wrong, but then there's just flat out good metal to it. There's a couple almost power metal sounding songs. And then you look at like the song The Storm Within, which closes out the album. Very melancholy feel. There's some aggression here or there, but a very slow tempoed track. But stand out vocals on this song. And probably, throughout the entire album, Tom sings incredibly well. But this song, to me, at least vocally, he nails this song. Again, I can't call it progressive metal all the way through because it has tinges of damn near every genre I can think of, which is great in my opinion. And the reason why I listen to this album so much more than the rest of them is this is an album, at least to me, that there's just so much going on. The way they layer the songs with stuff that you may not pick up on the first 2 or 3 times you even hear it. This is an album you really need to really, really sink into to appreciate even more. But yet at the same time, you can listen to it once and think it kicks ass. It's a grower, but in a different way. It's a grower as a, whoa, I didn't really appreciate that really cool keys part 4 minutes into this track. I never really picked up on it the first time. That's really cool. That kind of thing. There's just a lot of stuff going on this. And again, maybe I keep referencing, again, because I'm a huge huge Mind's Eye fan, even though they haven't made an album in God knows how long. But that kind of vibe where you love the song initially, but then the more you listen to it, there's so many layers of the music that really, really, really takes off for me. This is the one review, Biv, where we do not have the same score on this album, because to me, with the exception of the ballad, which is a good song, so I'm not trying to be impartial and saying it sucks because I'm just not a big ballad fan. But other than that, this is about as damn perfect as you can get. So I give it a 9.5 out of 10. I think